Hello, YouTubers. I want to welcome you to another edition of Bargain Bin Gear. And this is actually making use of an abandoned empty Peavey PA cabinet part 3. If you're just new to this video series, I hope that you'll go back and watch parts 1 and 2. Hopefully. An easy way to find old videos of mine is to subscribe to my channel, because I often reference old videos, as I've said. Alright. Now listen. As you know, we put in a Peavey Neo Pro 15 PA speaker, sound reinforcement speaker, but really we're kind of creating a bass cabinet. Okay, and now granted, it's not a bass speaker, it's just what I had on hand, and so far, it was like $17.50 for get the metal grill that we did in part 2 with the input jacks, and that works fine. However, I really believe that I can get a decent bass sound. Now listen, these little PA heads, they're both Peaveys too. They're actually pretty powerful, and if you run that signal too hot, okay, the speaker is gonna distort and things like that, okay? And you want to avoid that. But beyond that, for whatever reason, obviously I'm pumping low signals through there, okay? And it makes the speaker rattle, okay? And you don't want that. You want a really clear sound. And I was hoping that it wasn't the cabinet itself. That's the thing. If you have a cabinet that's rattling and things, that's really hard to get rid of. Whereas here, it's the fact that I'm not mounting the speaker securely enough. I'm used to guitar speakers, they don't run enough of that low end to worry about it too much. Here, I've discovered that it's critical. And, so I thought, well, okay, I'm going to get bigger screws to really secure that speaker so that it won't, rattle. Well, let me tell you something. And I didn't discover this till the end of part 2. So I put a disclaimer at the very beginning that I had discovered this problem. And it's my fault. I didn't, I kind of used screws I had on hand. And I'll tell you, there was one that came with it. And barely holds the speaker in. It's pitiful. So, I went to the hardware store. And I guess this is kind of an unboxing. But I'm just so discouraged that, So look at this. I went through all different kinds of screws. I got a little baggie of different screws. And if these were guitar speakers, no problem. They would work fine. But these, nope. Fail. That's right. It did not fix the rattle of the speaker. However, I also got one really big screw, and I thought, man, maybe this is what I need, you know, a big screw. I mean, and it's in there now, and I think this will solve the problem. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the screws I put in there and get these big screws and secure that speaker. And I think that will take care of the rattle. Now, I can't guarantee that, of course, but I think it will, because it'll hold that frame. So we'll see. But here, let me show it to you. Alright, now there's the cabinet at an angle. I'm going to zoom in here and you can see it. Okay. Oops. I had it. Alright, take a look. Okay, the bottom one still doesn't have a screw. And there's the big one. See that? That's a big boy right there. Okay, if you compare it to, that's what I had initially. These little doodads, and they're sad. And they just don't work for the speaker. It just, because it rattles, and I noticed that, you know, when you press down on the frame, it stops rattling, and so it needs to be secured better, and I think that'll solve the problem. So anyway, there you go. There's the screw. By the way, a viewer commented, and I think it's a great idea too, once that's done, and I've solved the rattle problem, right, to get a really good low frequency response, is to try to secure the cabinet, seal the cabinet, if you like. And one thing he mentioned that I hadn't even thought about was the horn, right? And there's no horn there, it's just a hole. Seal that up, and I think that's a great idea. Okay, if you take a look right here, there's the horn on top here. And it's just for show because it's been stripped. You know, remember this cabinet was in my shed about to be thrown away, so there's no horn there. You know, it's just for looks, I guess, at this moment. But there's a hole, you know, at the end of that, so I could seal that up. That's where we're at right now. So, here's the deal. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to go get those screws. And I'm going to replace all of them with those big screws. And hopefully that'll take care of the rattling problem. And that's probably the biggest thing at the moment. We'll deal with sealing it later. That's a good idea. And I'll work on that as well. But for right now, you know, making sure that speaker does not rattle, you know. And man, it sure doesn't take a lot, I'll tell you what. I mean, it was pretty tight with the other screws, you know. I mean, just a tiny bit of give, you know, on the bottom of the frame. And man, that's enough. It'll start to rattle and stuff. And it's not because I'm pushing the speaker to its extremes, you know. I mean, I've done that as well. And that's not a pretty sound either. But this is, it's different than just a speaker rattling. Nail it down without, and I know this is a problem on guitar speakers, without bending the frame, you know. You don't want to do that. But you want it tightened securely. Okay, well, today was a really lousy day. There was one fail after another. I couldn't believe it. Okay, here's the deal. I got up bright and early, right? And I rushed to the hardware store and I bought the larger screws, thinking finally the rattle will be removed, right? I mean, that was the idea anyway. And guess what? No. It was a complete fail. I tried to put the screws in, you know, and they weren't even big enough really, and they kind of fell through. And I'd even say the rattle was worse than it was before. I made some discoveries. That's right. That I certainly wasn't aware of. And one is this. If you are getting rattle in the low end out of your cabinets and things, right, it may very well be the speaker itself. Now maybe at really low volumes, but the second you turn it up, right, it's all this rattle and stuff, and it can't handle the low end. And I thought, oh, well, it must be the speaker that can't handle the low end. But no. As it turns out, well, it's the number of screws. Makes all the difference in the world. Now I'm going to test this theory and see if it's true. But let me tell you something. I played a test pattern, low end bass, and I was hearing a ton of rattle, and I had the 4 screws in, you know. That doesn't cut it. Are you kidding me? And actually, I had put up to 7 screws in there. I still didn't do it. But I put my hand on the bottom part where there was no screw hole available, basically. And guess what? The rattle started going away. And now it can handle a lot more bass, right? So there's something to be said for that. And so I'm gonna take a chance, and I have a drill, and I'm telling you, on the edge there, I'm gonna drill a hole where there was none before, to mount a screw. I'm still gonna use those big screws. They're very nice. I was going to, you know, go to the hardware store and get a bunch of washers and add a whole bunch of screws, right? Well, guess what? Well, guess what? I messed around with the cabinet some more and the speaker, okay? And it was true that I would play a emulated bass line, you know, I looped it and then put my hands on the edge of the speaker and press down and see if it made a difference, right? If it got rid of any rattle or that kind of thing. And there was one space near the bottom that was basically the offender. And that took drilling a new hole, you know, through the speaker edge and right into the cabinet, you know. And that seemed to take care of it. Now here I'm going to play through just using the little Peavey PA rigs, and I think you've seen them. These little doodads right here. And I'm not using the big one, though I have. I'm actually using the little bitty dude. See him up there? That's the little one. But it's perfect for this cabinet, and take a listen to it. And the bass is going through the guitar. And I used to think this sounded pretty good, right? Little did I know. Alright, let's bring in the Peavey. I'll plug it in here. This is with the Peavey. All of a sudden that bass comes alive, you know. And it's not pushing the Peavey too hard at all. Just running through the small little good balance there, right? You know, and that bass sounds huge, right? Because it's a good balance between the guitar and the bass. Push that Peavey a lot harder and get bass louder and louder, but then the balance is off with the guitar, you know, depending on the volume you're playing at. Yeah, it's good. Now I'm going to take the bass away, the Peavey. Still hear the bass, but it's going through the guitar speaker and it sounds wimpy, small, you know. It's okay, but alright, let's plug in the Peavey again. A much bigger sound, and I could raise that a little bit. I wouldn't want the bass much louder than this compared to the guitar, you know, and this is kind of pushing it a little bit. I just want you to hear the Peavey. Plenty of bass. Nice low end, and if I take the Peavey off, yeah, see right there, that doesn't sound much like a bass. Now let's hook up the Peavey again. Okay, so, and this is kind of the thing that I forgot. I kept pushing that Peavey harder and harder and harder, when in reality it doesn't need to be pushed that hard. If you're mixing it with the guitar and you're playing guitars at reasonable levels. In other words, the mix is so crucially important here. So if you're playing loops or what have you, and you're emulating bass and things, keep that in mind, that the mix between the bass and the guitar, right, is extremely important. And it can make your bass sound puny or big, you know. Wow. So that is always something to consider, you know. Something else you got to take care of, you know, if you're playing by yourself or what have you. There you go. And yeah, and I mean, we could push the Peavey a little harder, you know, a little louder and things, but then it would overtake the guitar, and that wouldn't sound good either, you know. So, and I kind of forgot that in testing, you know, the speaker and the amps and so on and so on. So pretty good. I'm very pleased, and I think I've gotten rid of the rattle. I mean, you heard in this previous thing, there's no rattle whatsoever on there, and it's a pretty good volume level too. You know, now of course I could crank it up and kind of, you know, push that Peavey speaker to extremes, to its limits basically, and there you would start to probably hear some rattle and those kinds of things. So there it is. And you can see it here. There we go. And it's small compared to the Hartke bass amp and the Fender Rumble 15. It's kind of small. Very nice balance. So this is something I need to consider. And I had kind of forgotten that. I was getting so focused on getting rid of that rattle, you know. And I didn't realize I was pushing that Peavey so hard, you know, volume-wise, when I really don't need it to be that loud, you know, comparing the mix to the guitar. So something to consider. And I think I've learned quite a few things, you know, with this experimental project. And, you know, one is concentrate on the mix between the guitar and the bass emulation, which I had kind of forgotten about. The second thing is mounting the speaker correctly definitely gets rid of rattle and things, and you think it'd be the rattle coming from your cabinet, but no, it's the mounting of the speaker does make a difference, you know. Now the other thing is, once you push the limits of the speaker, it doesn't matter how well it's mounted, it's, you know, it's still gonna kind of give you this rattly sound, and that's just pushing the limits of the speaker, which I was doing. But under normal playing circumstances, I wouldn't do that at all. And in fact, because of the mix between the guitar and the bass, at the right level, the bass sounds huge, bigger than it actually is playing it. So there it is. I'm pretty pleased overall. Not bad at all. Yeah, it's kind of redeemed itself once I started, you know, actually using it in the mix and things. Because before, I have to admit, when I was pushing it really, really, really hard, I was a little disappointed, you know. Couldn't get rid of that rattle and all this. And not realizing that I was really pushing not only the limits of the speaker, but also the volume level, you know. But once it's mixed with the guitars at a proper level, if you like, that I play at anyway, usually, you know, and I could play a little louder, that'd be fine too. Then I realize that it's working just fine, actually, and is meeting my needs, which is basically the bass emulation. And it surely does give you that big bass sound, compared to just, you know, having the bass running through the guitar speakers. So there you go. Very nice. I'm very pleased. And I think I've learned a lot here, and things to concentrate on going forward in the future. Alright, very good. See you next time. Okay, bye. Oh, and next time, we're going to get back to this little pedal board that's been waiting, you know. I don't know how I got roped into this project, but so we'll do that next time. Okay, see you next time. Bye.